kind of able to communicate with you, and I am within the screen as well. What we're going to be talking about today is a market analysis and strategy. Um, for 25 years, I was working at Metu, and a little over a year ago, I switched to universities, and now I'm teaching at AGU in Kayseri. I've been in my actual area of expertise is finance. My PhD is in finance. However, I was the head of the Entrepreneurship Research Center from 2012 to 2021 at Middle East Technical University. So I've been spending most of my time related to entrepreneurship, both teaching it and mentoring and helping out entrepreneurs with their projects, etc. So this is a field that is close to my heart, and I hope I can also contribute to your projects and the success of your projects. If you need to get in touch with me, just write Adil Oran into Google, and I should come up. There's not too many people with my name. So my website is adiloran.com, and you can take a look at the courses and other things that I'm interested in there if you'd like. So let's begin. So first of all, I like to start with a definition because I'm not necessarily interested in all types of entrepreneurship. Being at a university and trying to help out the economies that we take part in, I tend to be more interested in high growth potential entrepreneurship. And the definition that I use for this is one that comes from an author whose book I use in my courses as well. His name is Eric Ries, and the book is The Lean Startup. And the Lean Startup methodology is one that is used a lot in today's entrepreneurship education. And the definition is basically the first part is pretty straightforward. Somebody who is trying to develop a new product or service. But when you do this under conditions of high uncertainty, that creates the potential to make a big difference. What do we mean by high uncertainty? Well, there's a lot of unknown. In particular, sometimes you don't know who the customer is. You don't know how many customers there are. You don't know what type of problems the customer is experiencing, what they're trying to do, how they resolve these problems. What can you do to solve those problems? How important is that problem for them? How much would they be willing to pay? How much will it cost you to produce that solution? Where should you sell this? These are all unknown things. And you might have some ideas about many of those things, but initially, they're just your assumptions about what you think might be correct. And thanks to this high uncertainty, the potential for failure also tends to be higher. However, if you are able to catch the success, you can have a much bigger effect on the market, on creating innovation and growth and jobs within the economies as well. So this is what I'm looking at. Another thing I need to draw your attention to is there tends to be a lot of failure in entrepreneurship. Not all projects succeed. However, there are some statistics out in the internet, especially, which are especially scary. If you type this into Google, what percentage of startups will fail? It would probably be the first statistic that you see would probably be something like 90% of startups fail within 1 year. And sometimes they'll even add things like according to research by Bloomberg. When I first heard these statistics, it was pretty scary because I'm not sure I wanted to be pushing people towards entrepreneurship if the failure rate truly was this high. Fortunately, that statistic is not correct. It's probably a misinterpreted statistic from somewhere else, but let me give you, for example, the number for the US. And you can reach this number from the Small Business Administration's website. And there they show that for companies established in 95, 2000, 2005, 2010, when you look at all of these, this is the survival or failure graph. And we see that the different colors represent these different starting years, but the relationship seems quite stable across different time periods, different economic conditions. And if you look here, at the end of 1 year, about 80% have survived. So this is nowhere near the 90% fail within 1 year or 2 years statistic that is often mentioned. If you look out to 3 years, there you can see about 1/3 has shut down and 2/3 still exist. At 5 years, it's about 50-50. And at 10 years, about 35% or about 1/3 do survive out at least 10 years. So this is nice in that it's not as bad as those scary statistics, but at the same time, these are some serious numbers. Okay, so we need to be interested in how can we help good, high potential entrepreneurs experience failure less often. And a lot of this is going to do with what are the up-to-date tools which can be used by entrepreneurs to better understand their idea, to make it more concrete, and hopefully reduce failure. So yes, there are quite a few reasons why failure exists in entrepreneurship, but what we're truly interested in is how can we reduce it, especially for the high growth potential entrepreneurs. So this is an interesting study, and if you're interested in entrepreneurship, it's probably a website you should be taking a look at. So cbinsights.com is the website. And for example, if you're interested in unicorns, billion-dollar plus companies that are not open to the public. So in entrepreneurship, this is talked about a lot. And here, what they studied, this startup failure post-mortem, what this was they looked at companies that had received investments, but had later shut down, had gone bankrupt, or had failed. And they also wanted these companies to have announced why they believed they failed. So either on a website or a letter to investors or a blog post, the companies that shared this information. And if you look at the numbers, you'll see that it adds up to more than 100%. The reason for that is that some of the firms listed more than one reason why they failed. Now, you can take a look at this on your own. It's an interesting read, but the one which I want to draw your attention to the most, and which I believe is the most problematic one, is up here at number 1, with 42% of these companies saying that there was no market need for their products. This is a horrible thing to happen. So, and these are not your average startups, your average entrepreneurs. Remember that these companies had received investment from venture capitalists. So they had convinced at least one investor, probably more than one, that their idea had a chance of success. And later, they took that money, they tried to come up with the product or service, and they came up with it. But when they tried to sell their product or service, make money from it, 42% of these people found that there was no market demand for what they were doing. So in short, there was no customer. This is a horrible waste of the capital, the money invested in the company, the investors, and probably the owner, his or herself, all of the time, the energy that went into a startup. If you've ever started a startup, you know that you need to work very, very hard. And then finding out that what you're trying to produce, what you're trying to sell, no one wants it. That is a horrible feeling and really bad inefficiency. So that's my top priority, trying to make sure that startups, entrepreneurs that I teach or I mentor don't end up looking back and saying, oh, why did I spend so much time developing this product if there was no market need? By the way, um, some of us here are academics, and you might say, oh, we're smart people, we're academicians, I've done a lot of research on this, and so on. Um, Academic entrepreneurs probably are among the worst offenders. I have been involved in a lot of university students, graduates, academicians, which are undertaking entrepreneurship. And just because you have a PhD or a higher degree doesn't mean you're not going to run into this. And actually, sometimes it's worse because as academics, we're more interested in research and development. And is this truly something new? Can I publish this? And normally, once we publish our research, we're done. But here, it doesn't really make a difference if it's truly has research and development, if it's truly new, if it's innovative. What the market needs is for customers to exist and want to and be willing to pay for your products. And typically, academicians don't focus on this very well. So keep that in mind. So this is probably the most important slide of the presentation. Now, in this slide, I'm going to share with you this individual's view about what you need to do to make sure you don't fail or to increase your probability of succeeding. Okay, first, who is this individual? If you know him, you can share, you can jump in and comment if you'd like. But let me introduce him to you. His name is Paul Graham, and he was the founder of Y Combinator. If I remember correctly, Y Combinator was founded around 2003 and it was a big success and is still one of the top acceleration programs. You might say, what's an accelerator? Well, and I'll also mention what's an incubator. An incubator helps entrepreneurs go from idea that they have, a business idea, to setting up a company. And it helps you with the rent, with the location, with a number of services. An incubator actually comes later. An accelerator actually comes later. You typically have to have a product, at least a prototype, and hopefully you're also begun to sell your products. The accelerator makes an investment into your company, typically a small investment, maybe $50,000, $100,000, something like that. And then they polish up the company. They help you with your business idea, with your business model. They teach you about how to present to investors, and they introduce you to a lot of potential customers, and they kind of try to improve the existing company. And then they have what's called a demo day, quite similar to what we're going to be trying to do here at the SolarHub Ignition program. So that is also a type of incubator slash accelerator that we're trying to do here. And as a result, at that demo day, when you present to potential investors and or customers, hopefully that will allow you to accelerate the growth and the profitability of your company, increasing the value of your company. Accelerators make money typically from later selling their shares in the companies, hopefully at a profit. So Paul Graham was the founder of Y Combinator. And here's the secret to success. If you're ready, excuse me, here it is. Build something people want. That's simple. And here, what he means by people is build something customers want, that people will search for and be willing to pay money for. And we can take this and look at it from the other point of view as well. Do not spend money, time, effort building something people do not want. So this should be obvious. So it's a statement of the obvious. Build something people want. Don't spend time, energy, money building something that people, customers don't want. It's that simple. But you would be surprised how many entrepreneurs make this mistake, and how many smart entrepreneurs, well-educated entrepreneurs make this mistake. So one of my aims is going to be trying to help you, potential entrepreneurs, also be able to see this. And if we find out that customers don't necessarily want what you're trying to build for them, then we might be able to adjust the idea, change the idea. In entrepreneurship terminology, so this is called pivoting the idea, so that with what you have learned and done up to that point, can I make some changes so that the idea has a potential to succeed? So that's what we're going to be doing. And anytime I talk with entrepreneurs and I mentor entrepreneurs, what I typically ask them is, after they tell me about their ideas, I ask them, are you sure that there's a customer? Typically they'll say, yeah, I believe there are customers. And then I'll say, well, how do you know? And do you have proof that there are customers? And then the entrepreneur might say, well, I don't have proof right now, but I think there's customers. In order to have proof, I need to first finish building the product or the service or the software. Once I finish building it, and then I go and try to sell it to customers, then I will have the proof. The proof will either say, yes, customers are willing to pay and you're making good money, or you will end up saying, oh, I was wrong. The product, even though I think it was a good idea, nobody's coming to buy the product. So proof that it failed. Well, I want you to learn about this before you spend all that money, all that time, all that effort developing the product. Can we somehow learn whether your business idea has a customer or not? Can we do this earlier, as early as possible? That's going to be the main argument we make. And actually, let me also introduce you to this individual. He's one of the founding fathers of industrial engineering. He's Edward Deming. And if you're interested in industrial engineering or quality management, total quality management, there's an award in his name in Japan for total quality management. So something that he said, or at least is attributed to him, and is frequently used in companies like Google, is this. And you might notice I like proverbs, I like sayings, because it helps people understand ideas a little better and remember those ideas. So one of the things that he said was, in God we trust, but all others must bring data. What does this mean? Well, if you're God, I'm not going to question what you say. Okay? I'll accept it. But if you are not God and you're trying to convince me about your idea, for example, that there is a customer, well, you have to prove it to me with data. Bring me solid data in order to prove or disprove your idea. For example, how they apply this at Google is if you have an idea about a new product and you convince your managers about this, they will give you a certain budget and they'll give you up to 1 day a week and maybe allow you to form a team as long as you do your regular work as well. And then you will have this time and money to work on your own project. But they don't let you do this forever. For example, 6 months later, they will come back to you and say, okay, what happened? Give me the numbers. How many lines of code did you produce? What software did you end up developing? Typically at Google, it's some type of software. How many people tried your software? Did they like it? And how do they measure whether they liked it? Typically, if you like the software, if you tried it, you installed it. If you like it, you continue to use it if you find it useful. So they're interested in how many people tried it and how many people are still using it. How often do they use it? And this data will allow them to judge, does this product have a chance of success, of being added to the alphabet of Google and to make money for them? So in God we trust, but all others to prove, to support their ideas must bring data. Okay? So again, in order to reduce probability of failure, make sure that you are building something customers want. That's the secret. Okay, so then I typically spend a lot of time going over newborn babies. And I'll ask you, okay, what comes to your mind when you hear the phrase newborn baby? And people typically will say, oh, beautiful, oh, pure, oh, joy, stuff like this. And then I'll say, well, you know, I'm kind of tricking you because newborn babies don't look like the pictures I've showed you. Newborn babies tend to look like this, or if it was natural birth, the head will also be a strange shape. So newborn babies look more like this. And if you have had a baby recently, you might also be aware that a newborn baby basically means um, no sleep, cleaning a lot of diapers, and a lot of hard work. Okay? But for some reason, the parents tend to see their babies like this. Okay? So why do we as parents see our own babies like this, whereas in reality, they often don't look as cute or as nice? It's something that evolved over time. Okay? In order for us to continue having babies, this is how we need to see them. Otherwise, if we knew reality, we would probably have much less children. And that would be a big problem for humanity. Okay? So we need to see them like this. Now, why am I talking about newborn babies in a presentation on entrepreneurship, on market analysis, you might ask? Well, the thing is, as potential entrepreneurs, your business ideas tend to be like your babies. And just like babies, we tend to see our business ideas in a nice light. we tend to not notice the shortcomings or sweep them under the rug. Okay? And most entrepreneurs tend to fall in love with their ideas. They tend to think, oh, this is a great idea. Well, I have news for you. Most of the ideas, at least at first, suck. They're not very good. They have a high chance of failure. Only over time, by making improvements, adjustments, do some of those ideas become good ideas. If you look back at successful businesses, even there, you would probably find that the successful companies pivoted their ideas over time. And it was only after making changes, making improvements, getting feedback that they actually became successful. A real quick example could be YouTube, hugely successful company, right? Did you know that YouTube originally came out as an online video dating website? And it opened up for, I don't remember the year exactly, but it opened up its website right around February 14, Valentine's Day, and nobody came and uploaded their videos. So they were surprised, and the company was, well, the idea was about to fail. However, they noticed something else which allowed them to change their focus, pivot their idea. They noticed that people weren't using the website to share videos for potential dating, but some people were using the website to upload videos and share those interesting, funny videos with other people. If I remember correctly, it was around 2005 that they tried this. And at that time, it was not easy to share videos online with other people. The documents, the files were huge, the bandwidth was little, and there were many different types of files. So it was difficult to share these files with other people. But in order to be able to do this website, online dating website, video website, they had written some software which allowed people to upload any type of video file, and it would automatically be converted into a format which could then be uh, watched over the internet. And many people could watch it, and they could watch it easily. So it was a nice improvement. But the idea wouldn't have been successful if they had not pivoted to a website that allows you to share videos with your friends. And close to 1.5 years after this pivot, YouTube was purchased for about 1.5 billion US dollars by Google. So even successful business ideas, when you look closely at them, they probably are not in the original form. They have evolved, they have changed. So my suggestion to you is uh, look at your idea more closely, and if you find out that it has weaknesses, don't do this with babies, but with ideas, you can change them. You can adjust them. You can make them better. And if the idea after making the changes still isn't a good idea, there are no customers for it, you can even terminate the idea. Okay? Don't do this with babies, but for business ideas, yes, you definitely should do this. Don't waste your time, energy, money on a project that isn't going to succeed, that doesn't have customers. So, we want to introduce a tool that is going to help you. Remember that business idea, which is originally just floating in the air? While the idea is floating up in the air, you have it's easier to not see the shortcomings and see the idea as better than it is. So we need a tool which will help us capture that idea and put it down onto paper, not skipping any important details. So that is the job of a business model, to help you capture, put down onto paper, and add detail to your business ideas, so that then you are able to look at your idea on paper, and it is more difficult to lie to yourself, to hide the shortcomings of your business idea when you actually have to write it down on paper. And there's a number of different business models, but the most commonly used one in entrepreneurship education is the business model canvas. It is composed of 9 blocks, and these 9 blocks try to make sure that while you're putting your idea down onto paper, you don't skip, you don't miss any important parts of the idea. And later on, we will try to introduce more parts of this, or you can find a lot of information online as well. But I'm going to be focusing on especially one, maybe two of these blocks in today's presentation. So Alex Osterwalder, in his PhD thesis, developed this, and originally it was a strategy thesis, and it was supposed to be to help large companies understand their projects, their businesses, and communicate their business ideas more cleanly. Later on, some of the entrepreneurship educators saw this and said, hey, this would be great for entrepreneurs and their business ideas to help make them more concrete. But basically, what the business model tries to understand is, how does your company create value? How does it deliver this value to the customer? And maybe most importantly, how does it capture some of this value for itself? Okay. So sometimes there are ideas that create a lot of the value and get this value to the users, to the customers, but they aren't able to make money from this, in which case the business typically doesn't survive. So you need to be able to create, deliver, and also capture some, at least some of the value, in order to build a business which can survive and maybe even thrive. Sometimes they will refer to as a business model simply as, how do you make money? And we actually call that the revenue model. Okay, how are you going to make money from your business idea? And I will show you that even that is not straightforward. There's many different ways, other than just selling the product, that you can use to make money from a business idea. So let's look a little more closely. Here we have our business model canvas, and again, it's composed of 9 parts. People have a tendency when filling it out to start over here and go sideways and then kind of go down, because we're used to reading and writing left to right and then up to down. However, in a business model, you shouldn't really start from the upper left corner. And actually, the Turkish version of this. And here, I will actually show you that innovation doesn't only occur in the product. I will try to provide you some examples of how companies innovated in other parts of the business model, and this is what brought them success. For example, let me just show you one of them. Here you see Amazon, and Amazon innovated in a few places, but in particular in channels. What did Amazon do? It took originally CDs and books, which used to be sold in physical stores, and it said, from now on, I'm going to sell these online. And thanks to this innovation in the sales channel, today Amazon is one of the most valuable companies in the world, with a valuation in the trillions of dollars. And the thing that brought this about was not a change in the product, but a change in the sales channel, taking it online. Okay. So here on the right side, this is a meeting called Startup Istanbul that was held in Istanbul. I think it was in 2015. And to the left is an academician on entrepreneurship, Erhan Erkut, Professor Erhan Erkut. On the right is Steve Blank, one of the gurus of entrepreneurship. He used to be an entrepreneur and now teaches entrepreneurship at places like Stanford and I believe also MIT. And he's again one of the authors whose books I use in my entrepreneurship classes. So they were having a fireside chat, and the subject was, well, Steve, where do you begin? Where should people begin filling in the business model? And the answer was, initially, he said, it doesn't matter as long as you begin. But actually, it does matter a certain degree. In the business model, let me step back. In this business model, the key partners, key activities, key resources, and so on, yeah, they're on the upper left side, but they're not really where you need to begin. The two most important parts here are the value proposition. So this is the product, but more importantly, it is what do your customers get from using your product? What is the value that they get? And the other important box is customers, customer segments, because and these are probably where you should spend most of your time developing a business model. But I like to argue that customer segments is where you should spend the longest amount of time working on your business model, because understanding truly who your customers are and what their problems are is going to be the most important thing for you. Later on, find a way to solve those problems. And that's what's going to make you successful. And again, another quote for you. Um, Good entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily start with a good solution. Okay? Because as I said before, most of your solutions, your initial business ideas aren't very good, probably. However, if the problem that you are trying to solve is a good one, that's what makes a difference. Because if your first solution doesn't work, you can try a second alternative, a third alternative, a fourth alternative. But the important thing is you should be trying to solve a good problem. What makes a problem a good problem? Well, the solution there is that a good problem is one that enough people experience and they care. It makes a difference if that problem is solved. So basically, a good problem is one that has customers, has people waiting for that problem to be solved, and it really makes a difference in their lives if that problem is solved. Okay? So good entrepreneurship starts with finding a good problem that many people have, or at least enough people have, and it makes a difference in their lives if that problem can be solved. So that's what you should be trying to find. Um, and then another kind of definition of a good entrepreneur is someone who sees opportunity where others simply see a problem. Okay, because again, problems, if you can solve them in a good way, are actually opportunities to make money. But most people don't recognize this. And they live their lives simply complaining about problems rather than being able to solve those problems for themselves and for others and end up, making money from this. So I'm not going to spend time on this right now, but let me just point out, for example, here you see Google. Sometimes even very popular companies that we know quite well, we may sometimes misidentify their customers and their customer segments. For example, you might say, who are Google's customers? And you might say, hey, we all are. I use Google every day. I use it probably tens or dozens of times every day. I like searching on Google, yes. But you know what? I'm not really Google's customer. I am actually, and probably most of you, are Google's products. What do you mean? I use Google a lot, but I don't pay for it. So another kind of phrase which I like to repeat is, if you're using a product or a service, but you're not paying for it, be very careful, because probably more often than not, you are the product. You're not the customer. But who is Google's customer, at least on the search side? Google's real customers are the advertisers, the people that want to put something in front of your eyes. And Google actually, the value that Google is offering to these advertisers is advertising which is focused, okay? Which is only being shown to the customers that the advertisers want to reach. So you could buy, let's say, an advertisement on TV and have, I don't know, millions of people see your product, your advertisement. But of those millions of people, probably 90% of them are not your potential customers. So it's wasted. Google allows you to target the potential customers and reach them more efficiently. That is the value proposition, being able to sell to your customers. And to be able to do this, you need to be able to identify who your customers are as well as possible and as detailed as possible. So for this, one thing that I want you to be aware of is that customers or people come in many sizes. We are not identical. Some of us are big, some of us are small, long, short, etc. And so if you try to offer the same product to everyone, thinking that everyone will buy that product, you will be unfortunate, and you will notice that one size doesn't fit all. Even though a lot of stores today try to sell one product to everyone. It could be a t-shirt, it could be food, it could be software. They try to sell the exact same product to everyone. And there are some advantages to doing this. This is a mass market approach. And in a mass market, you try to produce in very large amounts, and this allows you to reduce your costs of production. and also be able to sell at lower prices. Unfortunately, when you try to sell something which is one size fits all, the downside is that one size typically only fits the average individuals. And most of the others are unhappy with the product. And let me give you a secret in business. You want to have happy customers. Why do you want to have happy customers? Because happy customers are the ones that come back to you again and again and again and buy from you again and again and again. And you want to build relationships with your customers so that you continue to make money from them. The success, the secret to success is to find a customer that continues to be your customer and buys from you again and again. And to be able to do this, you need to be able to keep them happy. Okay? And I'm about to take a little break. It's that time that you heard my alarm, and I want you to think about during the break opening up an online t-shirt store. And let me make some simplifying assumptions. Let's say that you want to open up an online t-shirt store and you've decided on the color and the design, everything. You have enough money to buy, let's say, 1,000 t-shirts. But in order not to miss the season, you can only place one order. Okay? So you're going to buy 1,000 t-shirts to sell on your online t-shirt store. The design, the color is already determined. You simply have to decide what size should the t-shirts be. Okay? And to keep it relatively simple, let's say the sizes are extra small, small, medium, large, extra large. And if you really want, maybe you can even add extra, extra large and extra, extra small. Okay, so those are your alternative. You have enough money to buy 1,000 t-shirts, or if you want 10,000, it doesn't matter. Tell me what size or what sizes would you buy and how much of each size would you buy? So um, let's take a break and let's try to be back at 11 o'clock, where I will be asking you to tell me about what your decision, what sizes and how much of each of those sizes you would be buying. Okay, I will see you in, I guess, about 7 minutes. Okay, we're back. And I hope everyone else is here as well. And I want to hear your views. For an online t-shirt store, enough money for 1,000 t-shirts, and you're only going to be able to place one order this season. So what do you do? Go ahead, jump in.
All right. Hello. So I
Hi,
just
Emre.
checked the hello. I just checked the percentages for the popular sizes in ChatGPT, and it says it is around 25 to 30 percentage for medium, and it is a little bit less for large. So I would bet my um, orders for medium for sure. But it also depends on the geography. For example, I live in the Netherlands, where basically the tallest people are on earth are living. So
I lost you. Your
uh,
connection might be a little slow.
all right, then I will try to explain it again. So basically I would bet for the medium
Okay.
according to the data that I receive from ChatGPT, but also it depends on the geography for sure, because for example I live in the Netherlands, and the people are in Netherlands are pretty tall taller than the average. So maybe
Uh-huh.
it also depends on where you are, your prime or primary customers are located. So
Okay, but you're an online t-shirt store. So does the location matter that much?
yes, because of the logistics for sure.
Okay, so you would buy what percentage, or would you buy a single size? Which one is it? M, L, XL?
I mean, according to this picture,
Uh-huh.
the data we see, I would buy large.
Large. Okay.
Like,
So all 1,000 large?
no, I would distribute the risk for sure, like, to
Okay,
reach
so in
far.
that case, you would follow kind of the normal curve. In almost all of my classes, I will draw the normal distribution at least once. So again, this time, it's quite a useful tool. Okay, thank you, Emre. Anybody else? What would you do? What sizes would you get?
Yes, if I may,
Yes, I'm listening.
uh, I was thinking the same normal distribution diagram that you have here. That was my first idea, and I would go. I have not Googled it, I have not searched it. I would say that the medium is the mean. So I would just break it like exactly the normal distribution size. So 75% is the medium, then you move on. You've got large, extra large, small, extra small.
So you would tend to follow the distribution of sizes as
Yes.
well. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? We have time for one more person, maybe to give us their view.
Okay, hocam. I looked at. I thought it is for the Turkish market, so I didn't think it's for an
That's
online
fine.
global thing. So, according to Turkish statistics, around 20% of the Turkish population is obese,
Okay.
and around 3 to 4% of the population is underweighted, like very small sizes.
Okay.
The rest is in between. So, but I guess their demand would be different for t-shirt between the obese and um medium large people.
Hmm.
So, according to these logic, uh, I would order around 30 to 40% to X large and 2X large. And the rest I will distribute between small, medium, and large.
Okay.
And one more insight, maybe there are many um, brands that do offer like medium, large, X large. So there are many choices for in between weight people, but for obese people, there are less options. So I would just try to focus on them, try to catch their attention, and they would, I guess, buy in bulks like 3 t-shirts, 10 t-shirts at once. So that would be my strategy.
Yes. Excellent point, because that's what I wanted to catch. If you are the first online t-shirt store, yes, I would probably want the distribution, and most I would buy medium and large, and then, less to the extremes. But there's probably other t-shirts online stores, and also t-shirts are sold quite a lot in regular stores as well, right? So people of average size, I can't really see everyone, but try to answer this. Average size people, do they have a hard time finding t-shirts? The answer is no. They can pretty much walk into any store and find t-shirts to fit them. But how about at the extremes? As you mentioned, the double X or triple X large, extra small, extra small, those people have a harder time. They can't find the t-shirts into most stores that they walk into. And as a result, they have a bigger problem compared to people of average size. So if I had to focus or try to focus on a group of customers that have a, an important problem to solve, the average individuals can easily find their t-shirts in regular physical stores. But the outliers, the extreme tails of the distribution, have a harder time. So, being an online store, they can easily reach this. It's not like going to a shopping center where there's only 2 or 3 shops. If I chose to focus on, for example, very large or very small individuals, I could also focus my advertising on just that group. They are probably searching for double X large, triple X large, extra small, and so on. So it might also be easier to reach those individuals with targeted advertising. And once I capture them and I provide them with the t-shirts in the sizes and the designs that they want, they become happy customers, which I can probably sell to them again and again and again. So if I were going to start an online t-shirt store, rather than just trying to sell to everyone, and again, when you try to sell to everyone, your advertising has to be everyone. You need to make sure that you have shirts for everyone and so on. But again, not everyone's problem is as big. The ones that truly have a problem that they would be very happy if you solve for them are the ones at the extremes, the outliers. So at least as a starting point, I would probably target the outliers. So and probably not both outliers at the same time. I'd either go for the XX small or XX large plus. And again, focus your energy and your advertising limited budget on just that group. Okay? And again, as a starting point, that would probably be a good place to begin. So, yes, it's a good thing that you think about the statistics and so on, but also think about who has the problem. Average customers, average users, typically are already satisfied by what is available in the market. It is the groups that are different that probably cannot easily find the products that they need, that they want. So find a niche, find a customer group which is different than the average, and try to focus on them, learn about them well, and then provide a product that is focused on them, especially when you're starting out. You can call this a beachhead market. You do not attack your enemy where they are strongest. You try to find somewhere where their defense is weak, and you attack that part of their defense, that part of the market, and you satisfy those customers, and you start to build a name and sales and profits there. Then over time, you might expand into the other markets. Okay? So learn about your customers and try to focus on a particular group whose needs are not being well met in the current market alternatives. What kind of benefits can you get by breaking up a market into customer segments? And again, you don't have to sell to all of the customer segments. This gives you a chance to focus on those customers, on that segment. You become more competitive because you are generating products that target their needs. And after starting here, you can still expand into other parts of the market. Customer retention is higher because happy customers stay with the company and buy from you again and again. Okay? You understand the customer well, so you can offer them products at the times they want to buy. And also, by understanding the customer well, you may also figure out how much money are they willing to pay. And at the extremes, they may be willing to pay more than the average customer, which can find products anywhere. There's much more competition in the middle of the distribution than at the extremes. Okay? So less profitability in the center of the distribution. What are some ways that you can segment your customers? Well, one approach is mass market, where you say, no, I'm going to try to sell to everyone the same product. And your winning point might be that mass market, you produce in large numbers, and if the average cost is falling, if you have economies of scale, you might be able to produce and sell at a lower cost. Another alternative is to look for a niche, a segment, a subgroup of the market, typically where the needs are different than the average and where there's much less competition. Segmented market, where you offer different products to different parts of the market. Diversified customer segments. For example, if you diversify across different geographies, sometimes, or different countries, when one country's economy isn't doing well, your other customers in the other markets might be doing well, and you can take advantage of this. Or multi-sided platforms or markets. This is what you can do when you're not necessarily producing the product yourself. You're simply providing a platform for the buyers and sellers to come together so that they can use your marketplace to find what they're looking for. And typically in these markets, you simply take a commission from each of the transactions. When is it best to segment, okay, rather than go mass market? If the needs of the different segments are different. To satisfy them, they need different products and or services. that's an opportunity. If they can be reached through different channels. For example, you might reach me through online advertising, but if you want to reach my father, you definitely need to go either newspaper or maybe television, because he doesn't use anything online. Okay? If they need different customer relations, again, think of me versus my father. I'm happy going to the ATM to get my money from the bank. Okay? But my father wants personalized service, and he also has more money than me. So when he goes to the bank, he goes and sits in a different section of the bank where they know his name, they know what he likes, they offer him tea, coffee, etc., and they provide him with personalized, customized service. This is doable if the profitability of the groups is also different. So to some groups, you push them out towards the ATM or towards applications on the smartphone for banking services. But for wealthy individuals, you might offer them higher level of service if the profitability is there. And yes, some customers might be willing to pay for a different group of characteristics of the products or service when segmentation might be beneficial in these cases. Typically, how do you segment the market? Well, these four are the most traditional ones. You can segment according to demographics, kind of statistics, depending on age. Okay, so the young people, university age, students, or retired people, or young groups, old, elderly, and so on, race, religion, gender, education level, university educated, or high school students, or no education whatsoever. These form different subgroups, different segments, or on income level. This is very common, right? You offer different products to the rich versus the intermediate groups versus the poor. Their ability to pay also is probably different. So segmentations according to demographics or according to geography, what city, what area, what country they live in, and maybe differentiating the products based on these characteristics. Psychographic, so this is a mixture of their psychological behavior and their demographic characteristics. And so, for example, you might do this according to the hobbies that they have. People that bicycle, that bike a lot, like nature, or according to their lifestyle, or according to their age, and so on. You may differentiate them. You might offer a different product for yuppies versus hippies versus versus retired people versus newly married people that have just had children. These are quite different groups. Or according to how they behave. For example, heavy users of your product versus somebody that buys your product once a year. You might change this. And what do they want from it, and so on. A newer group of segmentation, technographic, generally generational, and life stage. For example, again, new university students, new graduates, retired people, family with children, and so on, might be according to this. Firmographic segmentation, this is interesting, depending on what industry or what firm they're working for. You might segment them according to this. So these are relatively newer ways to segment markets. But again, the purpose of segmentation is to identify different groups that have different needs, potentially different profitabilities, so that you can customize your product for one or a number of these segments. Better creating products and services that better suit them, make them happier, and keep them being your customers again and again. One thing that you should be trying to construct are personas, okay? So this is going to be a description of who you think your customer is. And you're describing maybe one individual, but the characteristics of people that fit that persona. So it could be like somebody that currently has had a child and is not working. And so some demographic data about them, their education, what have they done in the past, what type of things they're doing right now, and what are the problems that they have, what kind of a product do they want. And if possible, also provide kind of a picture so that you want to get to know your potential customers, so that if they were walking down the street towards you, you could say, hey, that's my customer. I expect that person to be happy with my product. So I want to market my product to that individual and to that demographic, to that customer segment. Okay? And building personas helps you better understand your customer and details about your customer. Market research often is quite important in determining who your customers are and how big or how small your market is. However, not everyone believes in the value of market research. Let me show you two famous people and their views about market research. One of them is Henry Ford, right? The famous founder of the Ford Automotive Company. He says, and I quote, "If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." And this supposedly says, market research isn't useful because the customer doesn't really know what they want. Well, and here's the other one, Steve Jobs. And he had said a lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. Well, Steve Jobs was an innovator, and he did come out with some new products. But at the same time, he also introduced new versions of the same product a lot as well. So when you come out with a totally new product, the first time you come out with it, okay, you might be right. People might have difficulty identifying what they want. But here's the secret. When you go to your customers to do market research on them, you should not be asking them, "Oh, dear customer, what should I build? What should I make? What do you want?" Because if you ask them for what product should I make, then Henry Ford's view is quite valid. If in around 1900, if you had gone to your customers and had asked them, what should I make? They were using horse-drawn carriages and horse-drawn vehicles to get from A to B, to carry loads from A to B. So they knew about these horse-drawn carriages, and in order to be able to carry bigger loads or carry them faster, they basically, using that technology, faster horses would have been the solution that comes to their mind. But here's the problem. You should not be asking your customer for the solution, because they only are limited by the technology and the products that they know of. You should be trying to talk to your customers to try to understand their problems. What are the problems that they have? What would they want as an improvement? So carry a bigger load, be able to go from A to B faster. Okay, learn about that. Then how you solve that problem is the entrepreneur's responsibility. Knowing about different technologies like an automobile internal combustion engine and so on, the customer doesn't have to be aware that there is such a product. If the company, if the entrepreneur understands the problem that the customer is experiencing, then the entrepreneur should look around for different technologies that can be used to help solve that problem. So what kind of innovations can be done? That is your responsibility. Go to the customer to understand and find, locate the problems that they have, and also the characteristics of those customers and how many they are, and so on. So market research is useful if you use it properly. And conducting market research, well, if you have a lot of money, you can hire companies to do this for you. But as startup owners, entrepreneurs, you probably don't have that much time and money to have another company do this, which can take a lot of time and cost a lot of money. So what many entrepreneurs try to do, they'll say, hey, let me conduct a survey. Surveys, if you don't know your customer and your subject well, surveys, especially online multiple choice surveys, are typically not good, is a polite way of putting them. Most surveys, especially most online surveys, suck. They make you feel as if you're learning something about the market, about the customer, but oftentimes, if you didn't formulate the questions properly, the alternatives, if you didn't make them clear and so on, the results that you get are actually not useful, not reliable. I would argue that rather than 1,000 surveys, I would prefer 5 or, if possible, 10 good interviews. And again, doing interviews isn't, oh, I have the survey questions, let me just ask these to the customer. A good interview, you have an idea about what you want to get information about, but a good interviewer lets the customer talk. Ask them questions which are more open-ended, guides them slowly towards the things they want to learn about, but an interview isn't a chance to sell to them. Don't use an interview to say, hey, this product, do you like it? Do you want to buy? That's selling. In the interview, especially in the early stages, you want to get to know the customer and understand the problems that they are experiencing, so that then you can come up with solutions, products or services. Then maybe in the later interviews, you have them use or try your products or your services, and then you observe, how do they use it? Are they happy with the product or not? In order to, again, understand what's going on with that market, with that customer. I will be providing you with some resources about how to conduct good customer interviews, which are probably one of the most useful tools available to entrepreneurs, especially early in a project's life. Another thing you can do is sometimes you don't even have to interview the customers, sometimes simply observing what they're doing. Watch them when they're shopping. Watch them when they're using your product or your competitor's product, and see what they like, what they dislike, what do they have problems with. Another very useful source of market research is industry experience. If you have been working in a particular industry for a number of years, you probably have pretty good ideas about what are the problems, the most critical problems that you are encountering in that industry. And maybe you might come up with ideas about how to solve those problems. What are the ones that really bother you? What are the ones that cost you a lot of money? And also talk with your potential customers to understand when you think they have a particular problem, ask them, what are they currently doing to solve that problem? If they're not doing anything, be careful, because if the problem truly is a big, important problem for them, they would be trying a lot of different things to solve that problem and buying some other things, using your competitors' products. If they're not doing anything, maybe the problem isn't as big or as important as you initially had thought. Okay? So your customers' industry experience, or if you or your co-founders have been working in a particular industry, this can be a very valuable tool as well. Here's some of the links I was talking about. I will be providing the presentation to you over online at a future date, so you may also use these to understand how to conduct good interviews. The first group are some videos that talk about techniques of customer interviews. The second one is an electronic book, talkingtohumans.com. And the third one is a book which also has some videos helping you understand what it's about. I really like this last one. It's a newer one. And the idea behind the mom test is, normally I would say, don't ask your mother or somebody that you're related to that likes or dislikes you about your business idea. Because rather than evaluate the business idea, your mom will probably say, oh, that's a good idea because she likes you, she loves you. Okay? So in my mother's eyes, for example, I am much more handsome, much smarter than I truly am. So if I come up and I talk about an idea I have, she's much more likely to say, oh, that's a good idea, even if she doesn't really think that way. So the techniques that they talk about in the mom test are ways that even if you were interviewing your own mother, how can you get honest feedback from them? Okay, so good resources. Then let's talk about markets and market sizes. If you're lucky, the market that you are interested in has had a lot of research done on it. For example, this is an example from Statista, and I simply typed into Google, I said, industry report on fintech, financial technologies. And one of the links that I was provided was this. Statista basically is a website that offers a lot of statistics about different things and reports. And there, it allowed me to reach this information, which is about the financial technologies markets and the transaction size and value in these markets over time. And you can actually go in and do this for different markets. Do you want the world numbers, or do you want a particular country, a particular region? And do you want to do comparisons? And also a number of different statistics that can be reached here. So this is a case where industry information, market size can be reached relatively easily. In most cases, it may not be possible to get this data in such a simple manner. What are your alternatives in those cases? Well, first, I would look for industry reports, or if there's market research data available online, or sometimes through paid versions. Or if you know of companies that operate in that industry, you might look at their financial statements, because publicly owned companies, which are traded on exchanges, have to disclose every quarter their financial statements and their performance. So you can look at their numbers to try to get an idea about how fast or how slow these industries are growing, what kind of profitability you can expect. And in other parts, they might also give you information about how quickly the market is growing or is stagnating, etc. Sometimes you can find presentations or videos that competitors made, and you might be able to use the numbers that they gave in their presentations. Again, when you don't have good information easily available, you start looking at as many places as possible. And then you might have heard of these names: TAM, SAM, SOM. TAM is typically the largest market. It is typically called the total addressable market. This basically is such a wide market that you probably would not be able to reach all of the customers in that market. It could be, for example, the worldwide financial technology market. But you plan on operating in just Turkey. In that case, your SAM, or specific addressable market, might be the fintech market of Turkey. Okay, just Turkey. And these are typically in dollars or some currency. So the specific addressable market, you try to bring it in, and that is comprised of the customers that you potentially could reach. It could be a country, it could be a city, or it could be a subgroup of customers. For example, it could be your TAM might be all of the banking sector of Turkey, whereas your SAM might be you're targeting the small banks, and that would be your SAM, or specific addressable market. Different authors might use slightly different names for these. So you might see different alternative notations. The SOM, or the smallest of those, is again, different definitions exist, but the most common one is share of market. So within the SAM, what percentage of that are you planning on being able to have as your customers? And sometimes you talk about the share of market in 1 year, in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Hopefully, if you're successful, your share of market will be increasing over time. So this kind of market size estimation, you can call it a top-down approach. You start out with the biggest total market, and then you come down in steps towards the customer's market, direct market you plan on being able to sell to directly. Sometimes these may also be called, or referred to with other names. So sometimes this is called fun with Excel. You construct a spreadsheet and then you say, okay, there's this many customers. If the average order of these customers is this much, that makes my total available market. And then for the geographic area I'm trying to reach, that's maybe 25% of that TAM. So my SAM is going to be 25% of that. And then of this specific addressable market, well, there's a lot of competition in this market, so I wouldn't be able to capture all of it, and I probably wouldn't even be able to capture 50% of that market. Most good companies have between 5 to 10% in this market. So if I can become successful, I might be able to capture 5% in 3 years and maybe go up to 10% in 10 years. Okay, so this multiplying that number by 5% or 10% can give you the SO1. So basically, this is okay, let me, in a spreadsheet, kind of try to come up with numbers to put into the business plan that I'm trying to prepare. Or another top-down estimation method, the China syndrome. This actually comes from a movie, I think it was in the 70s or 80s, about a nuclear accident. And the China syndrome was supposed to be when you have an accident on one side of the earth, does it shoot through the center of the earth and cause a problem on the other side? But what we are referring to here is sometimes that you do an analysis like this. Well, there's 1.5 billion people in China. If I were to sell, $1 worth of products to each of those customers, I would be making $1.5 billion per year. Or if I was able to capture 1%, or no, even that's too high, 1/10 of 1% of the Chinese market, that would still make, I don't know how many million customers, right? This is not a very good approach, because starting from a big number, anytime you start out from a very big number, multiplying that by a percentage or a ratio is going to give you a good number, but that number you multiply it by has to be meaningful. Otherwise, that analysis doesn't really provide me with any useful information. Another thing you can try is a bottom-up estimation. And a bottom-up calculation might look like this. Well, I'm going to have 5 people working on sales. Each day, each of those 5 people can reach 10 customers. Of the 10 customers I reach, if I can convert into a customer 20% of those, that makes of 10 customers, 20% 2 customers times 5 salespeople. So 10 customers per day is what I can expect to get by having 5 salespeople if their performance meets these standards. And if they bring in 10 customers per day in 1 month, only business days, so we have about 20 business days in 1 month, I should be able to get approximately 300 new customers each month. In 1 year, multiply that by 12. But also, not all of your new customers always stay with you. The percentage of customers you lose each period, that is called the churn rate. And you might be able to list the churn rate per month or per in video games, for example, in computer games, smartphone games, you might use the churn rate per day. How much of your customers do you lose each day? But for other things, you might list that per month or per year, okay? But that says, yes, if I get 300 new customers each month, if on average the customers stay with the company for, let's say, 2 years, what percentage am I losing, and so on. So this would give you a chance to calculate how much customers you expect to have by the end of the year and multiply that by the average money that they spend should give you a chance to build up a bottom-up estimate of what your market size is going to be. In this one is from Steve Blank's book, where he examines the way that companies get new customers, and not only get the customers, but this is a two-sided funnel, right? One side here gets narrower than straight portion, and then this other side gets bigger again. So this is a representation of how your company gets, keeps, and grows the customer that they have. Okay? So in the getting period, and you can see it here, but I don't have the name, so I'll switch back to this. So the potential customers become paying customers only if they make it all the way through this funnel, which gets more narrow. So you use advertising and other methods to make potential customers aware of your products, but of the people that become aware of your product, only a portion of them then develop interest and then compare your product to your competitors, and then of those, only a portion buy your product and actually become paying customers. Okay? So if they've made it through this funnel, they become your customers, and then how long you're able to keep your customers determines how much money you could make from them, right? If, for example, let's say you're Netflix, and for Netflix, let's say that you are paying $5 per month. If a new customer stays with Netflix on average of 2 years, then 2 times 12, 24 times $5 per month, that is how much money you expect to be able to make from them. This is referred to as the lifetime value of customers. So how long they stay with you. And then this second funnel, which gets bigger, is about how you can make more money. How can you grow your customers? So referrals is, can I get my customers to help me find new customers? Cross-selling is when my customer is buying from me, can I sell them something else together with that product? Like when they come to buy a new phone from your store, can you also sell them insurance for that phone? That increases your total sales to that customer. Upselling is when the customer comes in thinking they're going to buy the cheap version of the product, but you upsell them a more advanced, a more expensive version of the product. Or unbundling is, rather than selling them a bundle of products like Microsoft Office, you might sell to them the individual products for people that don't want to buy the entire Microsoft Office suite. And this allows you to sell more than you would if all customers had to buy everything. So I'm running a little short on time. So let me skip forward a little bit. But yes, in this graph, again, we have the get, keep, and grow portion of the customer relationship. And on the bottom here, we have customer acquisition cost. This tries to measure how much does obtaining one new customer cost you. So to get them into the funnel and all the way through the funnel, how much does it cost? And we compare this to the LTV, or lifetime value, of that customer. If the LTV is higher than the CAC, and typically you want it to be at least twice as much to make sure you're covering your other costs as well, in that case, this can be a profitable business. The more money you spend on advertising, the more customers you get, the more money you start making if the LTV is higher than the CAC. And here we have a little more explanation of these and how you would calculate it. And then let's try to finish up with quickly with a few words about competition in your industry, and also about how you would approach that competition and how you would price perhaps what you're trying to sell. Sometimes I hear this a lot, entrepreneurs coming to me and saying, we have no competitors. This is almost always wrong. The reason they're saying they have no competition, typically they don't know how to use Google, because I can find competitors in 30 seconds, whereas they've been working on it for weeks or months and they don't know the market well. Another potential explanation is that they're defining their market too narrowly. They're saying nobody else is doing that in this country or in this city or in this color or using this technology. Be careful. To be a competitor, they don't have to use the same technology. They don't have to be in the same location. To be a competitor, all that's necessary is they're trying to solve the same problem that you are trying to solve. So a different technology, a different size, a different color, a different software doesn't make a difference. If in the eyes of the customer, this and this are alternatives to help solve a problem, they are your competition. Okay? So knowing about your competition helps you understand the market better. It allows you to look at what your competitors have done presently, in the past, and learn from their mistakes, and hopefully learn from what they're doing well as well. It gives you a chance to decide where you want to be in that market. Hopefully choosing a place where there's less competition and potentially higher profit margins. And knowing your competition, you can use market research to reach these people, or simply talk to, or simply observe your customers. What are they doing? What are they buying? What are they using to solve their problems? Also, alternatively, don't go just to your customers, but talk with your industry network, with your suppliers, with your vendors. This can help you identify who your competitors are. And then last thing I'll talk about this class, revenue streams, is about how do you capture part of the value that you are creating. And here we have a few also innovators in this field. But what I want you to be aware of is selling a particular product or a service isn't the only way you can make money from a business idea. Okay, so for example, Xerox in 1938 was the inventor of the photocopying process, and they obtained the patent for this. Then they spent a number of years after they got the patent developing this version that you see, and this was quite expensive. It was about 5 to 10 times the cost of alternative copying versions. Or in the business world, you could simply use a secretary, give them the thing you wanted copied, and they would type up a copy of what you gave them. So at that time, when Xerox took this scientific invention that they had made and tried to sell this to companies, large companies initially, they found that the managers were hesitant to buy their product. Why? Because they were afraid that it wouldn't be used and then they would get into trouble for having spent money buying this thing which nobody used, because there were cheaper alternatives available in the market. But they had an invention, good invention, important invention, which wasn't selling. So they had a business model innovation in their revenue stream. Rather than trying to sell the product to their potential customers, large business headquarters, they said, okay, I'm not going to sell it to you. Let me rent this to you. And actually, the rent will depend on how much you use it. So I will be the owner of the machine. I will repair it. I will put in the toner, the paper, everything. Just give me some space in your office. Let's put this machine in your office. If you don't use it, you don't have to pay anything. And in 3 months, I'll come and get my machine. You lose nothing. But if you use it, I think it was something like 2 or 3 cents per page. Once they made it in the door, because the risk had been removed from the shoulders of the managers, they said, okay, bring in your machine. And once the machine was in the headquarters, the companies started to use it so much that the Xerox ended up making much, much more money than if they had been selling those actual machines. So this was an invention, an innovation in the product, which only was able to become successful when a business model innovation in the revenue stream was also used. So here I have listed quite a few revenue models: selling the product, renting or leasing this product, or having a subscription to Netflix or to some other Spotify or something like that. This actually allows you to continue to make money for as long as the customer stays with you. And if they're happy, they stay a long time and you make money from them again and again and again. Pay-as-you-go model like Xerox used, a freemium version, free basic model, and a premium model if you want additional characteristics and so on. And you can take a look at these other alternatives on your own as well. And let me finish up with a few words about pricing. The most common pricing method is also one of the worst pricing methods that exist. The most common pricing method is cost plus. It costs us 100. Let me add 50% on top of that, cost plus, and we'll sell it for 150. Honestly, your price, at least in the short run, should not be related to your cost. Your cost simply is a lower bound on the price in the long run that you can have. But the upper bound is how much utility does the customer using your product get? Where you end up between this lower and upper bound depends on how much competition exists in your market. If there's a high level of competition, you have many competitors, and the products are very similar to each other, you will probably get pushed down towards the lower side, that minimum cost plus maybe some profit. You don't want to be there. You want to have a product where you don't have a lot of competition and your product is different, hopefully better than your competitors. In that case, you may be able to rise up towards the middle or maybe even towards the top of that range. But again, where you end up depends on how good your product is, how good your competitors are, what are the advantages, disadvantages of your different products that you're offering. And so your pricing should depend more on the customer, their ability to pay, and how they're using and benefiting from using your product. Here's a number of different ways you can get money from an advertising-based model. So, for example, a lot of games today are free to play, but they show you advertising, or there are in-app purchases that you can make, and they make their money indirectly. So be aware of these as well. And then here are some of the pricing strategies available to you, starting from cost plus, the most common but not the best one, to all of these other alternatives as well. So I've run out of time, so I am going to be stopping here. And at the end of the presentation, I'm also providing you with quite a few resources that you might find useful on entrepreneurship, on business models, on lean methodology, also on growth hacking. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you need to reach me, you can use my email, adil.oran@agu.tr or adiloran@gmail.com. It was nice to chat with you, and I hope to see you guys again later in the project. Any questions? If you have them, I'm going to be around for a few more minutes. I'd be happy to chat with you or answer your questions. Let me stop the sharing so that I can try to see what's going on.
Hocam, hello.
Yes.
Turning back to our t-shirt example.
Yes.
Okay. We thought about an optimal strategy, like focusing on maybe the tails of the distribution.
Be careful. It might not be the optimal strategy.
Yeah, okay.
For each kind of business, there's hundreds of different business models.
Okay.
You can change one part, you can change another part, and around the same selling t-shirts idea, there's probably hundreds of different versions.
Yeah.
And among these, there's probably most of them are not good, will be unsuccessful, but there might be, I don't know, 5 to 10 of them which have a chance of success. So what I'm trying to do is help you see the different alternatives so that you and your original idea, you might be able to see what different approaches you can take. And for those different approaches, do they have a chance of success, or should I try something different? Back to you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, okay, we thought about a logical, let's say, a rational strategy. But there are other people that may have end up with very similar strategies as well,
Yes.
right? So it's
Yes.
like then entering the market with similar strategies from multiple players might end up with suboptimal solutions, let's say um, in a niche game, let's say in game theory, right?
Yes.
So, and when we look at the t-shirt market, online t-shirt sites, I don't really recognize any maybe like oversized t-shirt, like website focusing on oversized people. Maybe I don't search for them. That's why. Uh but there are many websites. If they think about like me or you, they would focus on those people, right? But they generally don't. So
Most
like
of the
how do you reflect
alternatives,
on this?
yes, most entrepreneurs or most businesses tend to focus on the fat part of the market in the center of the distribution
Yeah, okay.
because 66% plus is within one standard deviation of that, right? So most people say, hey, the biggest number of customers are here, so I want to focus on that part of the market. So most entrepreneurs, most businesses look at that. But I'm trying to show you that an alternative to this might be, because there's going to be a lot of competition there.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of companies doing this, the profit margin is probably going to be smaller there. But, and also advertising is going to be expensive because you are trying to reach everyone, all
Yeah.
of the groups, but you have limited resources. If I had unlimited resources like Trendyol, purchased by Alibaba, they have a huge budget, right? They can advertise to everyone. They can advertise on billboards, on television, in magazines. I am a startup. I have a limited budget, so I need to be careful how I spend that. I need to be focused. So rather than understand all customers and try to satisfy all customers, my limited budget is normally better suited to finding a niche where the customers are different than the average, whose needs are not being well met by current alternatives, then develop a product or a service that is good for them. Again, this market is much smaller than the mainstream market, but there's much less competition there. And I'm not a physical store, so I don't have to worry about, oh, my customer, people walking in will be on average normal size. I can advertise and bring in the outliers, which are unhappy with the current alternatives. But again, if too many people start trying to do this, you're right. I'm going to have to make other adjustments. You're right.
I see. Thanks.
But normally we call this a beachhead market, where you initially try to enter the market and you want to çıkarma plajı in Turkish, right? You don't attack your enemy where they are strongest. You try to find a weak place in their defense where they maybe don't even exist, and then attack and capture that portion of the market, establish a good name, make sure your customers are happy, then you may expand into the other parts as well over time. You don't have enough money to attack all parts of the market at the same time, you'll go bankrupt. Okay? Thank you for the question. Anybody else?
I have another one if you have time.
I do.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, so we
Until
have
somebody else steps in.
okay. We have 4 pre-designs in SolarHub project. Two can be categorized as agro PV products technologies, and 2 are some solar thermal solutions with the help of Yeah, solar energy. So let's take the agro PV products. Like, how can we determine the market that it fits into? Like, is it the energy market? Is it the agriculture? Is like, should we target the farmers or should we target the farmer associations? Should we target very big um, agri-food companies?
Yes.
So these are very hard questions.
Let me try to give you my understanding of where we are right now.
Yeah.
For example, one of the ideas was for I guess greenhouses and putting photovoltaic things on top of the greenhouses, and the other model was basically for places where they have fruit trees, and then kind of trying to develop something similar but using a slightly different technology. Now, we have customers and we have also, let's call them users. And actually here we have kind of two different groups of customers, in my view. One, we have the farmers, right? Which are already growing different types of vegetables or fruits. And these farmers are trying to make money by farming. And we are trying to say to them, hey, in addition to your regular farming income, perhaps we can add to that by using these photovoltaic alternatives and also generate energy. And one alternative is you can use this energy yourself, or you can sell it to the energy producers. So the other actor that we need to take into account are the energy producers that we want to sell to, because they're going to be customers for the electricity that we generate. And what are the laws, regulations that make it easy or difficult for this to take place? And then within the farmers, as you were also pointing out, we have the relatively small farms, and then we have the large farms, and then we have perhaps cooperatives of farmers. And again, we have some farmers in locations that can easily connect to the network, to the energy grid, and sell this. And then some which are very far away, and then it would be expensive or difficult for them to sell their excess energy. I don't know, we can probably add quite a few different customer segments depending on geography, depending on farm size, depending on do they rent the land, do they own the land? I don't know. I have to think about this. But we need to look at each of those groups and try to identify which ones make more sense, which ones are easier to reach, which ones need the most help, and as a result would be most willing to be among the starters. And then we have some farmers which are very traditionalist, and they say, oh, I don't want to risk my plants, my trees, and so on. And then maybe among the younger group, they may be more willing to try new things and incorporate electricity production into their business as well, right? So we need to come up with first a brainstorm how we might be able to reach different groups, which ones make more sense, less sense, and then decide on where we're going to start with, which group we should attack first. How can we reach them? For example, the cooperatives, or I don't know, maybe in Turkey, you want to go to the town cafes where the farmers maybe hang out and have chats organized, telling them about this new technology, which might help them, rather than television advertisements or newspaper advertisements. Maybe try a different way of reaching them. So for this, we need to get to know them. Where do they live? where do they spend time, what do they read, which channels do they watch on television, which radio stations do they listen to, how do they decide on these things. So the better you know your potential customers, the better results, the easier it's going to be to reach them, advertise to them, convince them to be customers, etc. Okay? So again, we need to construct, we need to get it down onto paper and come up with different versions of how photovoltaics or energy production through thermal, how that can be incorporated in different ways for different groups of farmers. Okay, I think I've gone over by about 15 minutes. Thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you guys again.
Thank you.
Again, if you have questions, if you want to reach me, adiloran@gmail.com is probably the easiest way to do this. And thank you, especially Furkan and Anastasios, for proving to me that there were actually people alive and listening to me, at least for parts of the presentation. Have a good day.
Thank you, Adil.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.